Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning out there on Facebook. We're so glad to have all of you here, and also you. And today, if you are out on Facebook, when I ask a question, if you would share what your thoughts are on the comment line, we would be so grateful to hearing from you, as we're making you also an interactive part of our service, because we really know that you're out there with us. Don't you feel them? Don't you feel our Facebook people? Yeah. So today's sermon is the big picture, and I'm going to start it out with a little laughter. Now, that was an instruction. So Fred comes home from college, and he almost has tears in his eyes, and he's like, "Mom, I'm not sure I'm your son." And she's like, "What?" And he says, "I took this genealogy test, and none of my DNA matches anyone in my family." She's like, "Oh, well, that can't be." So she picks up the phone and she calls her husband, and she says, "Honey, Fred says that he might not be our son because his DNA test doesn't match anyone in our family, and he also told me it matches this family across the city. And so I'm just so worried. Is he our son?" And the father just shouts out right away, "Well, of course not. He's not our son." And she's like, "What?" And the father says, "Well, it was your idea." And so she's like, "Well, I don't understand." And then he starts explaining to her, "Well, remember that night we were in the hospital and they brought that baby back in, and that baby kept crying and crying and crying, and you finally said, 'Go out and change him.'" And that's exactly what I did. And didn't I do a great job? So that's funny in numerous ways. Thank you. Thank you for following my instruction to laugh. Here's another question for you. Do you ever feel like you're adopted? Yes. Do you ever feel like, how can that sister be thinking that way? Or how can that brother, how can we be born in the same family and have such different views? Yeah. And how often does it maybe, it's a little bit hard to be spiritual around your family. I don't know who said it, but someone said, it's easy to be spiritual until you go home for Thanksgiving dinner. And especially now in our times, because we have such differences in opinion for the coronavirus or worldviews, or there are such big differences between people. And even with my friends sometimes, I'm wondering, how can I be such close friends with them and have such big different views? And I think the reason is because we all have different experiences. We all have different experiences, and we all stand in a different place when we look at the world. And because we have different experiences, and where we're standing makes up the picture that we see. I want to show you this video, and it's a piece of artwork that's being created. So let's go ahead and start that.
This may look like just a jumble of old painted plastic and wire, but when you take a step back, you see it for what it really is. A remarkable sculpture suspended in mid-air. People say that perspective is everything. Well, artist Michael Murphy's work literally depends on your perspective. You'll only see the image if you're standing in the exact right spot. Giving his sculptures this effect requires an intense level of planning, mapping out where each seemingly random piece of puzzle needs to fall to create an image our eyes understand. Take the Google piece he's working.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah. And so that artwork depends. So we have these random pieces of material hanging, and where we're standing makes a difference on how we see the big picture. And so I think this is a great metaphor of how we see the world and why our opinions are different. If you take each of those pieces of artwork and say, that's an experience I had, or that's an experience they had, and then I'm standing here and looking at it, I'm going to see a different picture than you standing here and looking at it. Now, sometimes what I think happens, though, is people decide, I want you to see the picture I see. And sometimes when we do that, it brings up sometimes a volatile situation, a little bit of anger. Have you ever been angry around something? To be honest, I've been angry. Sometimes I get angry about the injustices of the world. And what's worse is I get angry that people don't see those injustices the way I see them. And then I get even more angry that they don't want to solve the injustices the way that I want to solve them. I had a friend the other day, she's a Unity friend, and she asked me this question. And she said, Kirti, what do I do when I'm in world situations and I'm in discussions and I'm angry, I'm frustrated? What do I do? And I thought about that question, and then it also brought to mind the question of how do we live relevant spirituality now? How do we live that? How do we get ourselves out of that situation? And so I prayed that the right answer might come to me for this talk. And this is the answer that came to me that works for me. And the first thing is to realize that each individual has their own experiences. And once we realize that, we can look at where are they standing. Are they standing, maybe they've just lost their job. Maybe they're getting ready to have a baby. Maybe they have had health issues. Maybe they've made a big sale. We don't know where they're standing when they're looking with all of those experiences behind them. And so that's the first thing that we would do. We would look at their experiences. And here's the second thing we would do. We would infuse love into the situation. Infuse love. Now, before we infuse love into the situation, though, we have a more important place to infuse love, and that's in ourselves. We have to love ourselves. We have to love this body. We have to love this divine mind. We just have to love ourselves. And the other thing we have to do is we have to forgive ourselves. I know I've had plenty of times where I've dealt in the coronavirus and all of the world issues, maybe not in the best place. And I know there have been times when I've had opportunities for growth that I've gone, nope, I'm going to let that go right now. And I know I've had times where I've had my ego win, edging God out. I've let my ego win. But if I infuse love into the situation, love into myself, then it is so much easier to infuse love into others. It is so much easier. And when you're infusing love into the situation, when you're infusing love into yourself, when you're infusing love any place, you are also living our vision statement. Our vision is a world powerfully transformed through the growing movement of a shared spiritual awakening. So here's a question to you. What does spiritual awakening mean to you? Out there on Facebook, what does it mean to you? What does it mean to any of you?
Being our true selves.
Being our true selves, our essence of God. Thank you, Keith. Anybody else have?
Seeing God in everything.
Seeing God in everything. Thank you. Yes, yes. So a spiritual awakening, I know, is being in a world of love, not hate. A world of gratitude, not fear. A world of abundance and not lack. It's living in a world of love and peace and being our God's self. And so as we are bringing love into the world, we are also living our vision statement. Okay? We're living relevant spirituality now. Now, I have a little bit of problems with this, getting my hands around transforming the world. So how about if, for me right now, I change it? Our vision is two people powerfully transformed through the growing movement of a shared spiritual awakening. So I have a much better chance of doing that, since I might be one of those two. Yes, yes. And so when I infuse love into the situation, when I infuse love, I maybe can transform two people. And those two people can transform a room. And that room can transform a spiritual center, and we can go on and on. Because that is what living relevant spirituality now is. And the other thing it is inspiring minds, awakening hearts, and empowering lives through the teachings of Jesus Christ and other expressions of universal truth. Because what did Jesus teach us? To love one another. To love one another. And so, when you infuse love, you are living our vision, you are living our mission statement, you are living relevant spirituality now. And I'm going to ask you this question, okay? Why do people give money to causes? Why do you give money to maybe a food bank or a animal shelter or a tornado relief? Why do you give money? To help. Right, to help others. Because people want to help others, and they also want to make a difference. Every one of us wants to make a difference in the world. And so there's another way that you can live our mission statement, and that is to donate money. To donate money to Unity Bay Area Houston. Now, why do I say that? Because we cannot be inspiring minds, we cannot be awakening hearts, and we can't be empowering lives if we don't have what is here. If we don't have this wonderful music team, if we don't have this sanctuary, if we don't have these wonderful things. And as you give to Unity, you are being the difference. Have any of you out here ever been inspired by the music? Really inspired? Woo! Well, when you give and you donate to Unity, you are the musician. You are the musician. Have any of you heard a talk that truly awakened your heart? When you donate, you are giving. You are the person giving out that message. You are awakening hearts. And have you ever wanted to let our children know who they are? That they are the essence of God. That they are. By giving your donation, you are telling children, you are the teacher, telling them who they are. They are. And so, the other thing is, when you give your monies, and I'm inviting all of you guys on Facebook that maybe have not been here ever physically, you are here with us. I'm inviting you guys to also be a great musician, also be a great teacher, also be a person that awakens hearts, and donate. And I would love if you're a first time or second time donator, please let us know. I would love to thank you personally. And whether you decide to donate or not, I can promise you this, and I know many of you in this room can agree with me, that all of your donations will come back to you 100-fold. They may not come back in the physical sense that you sent them out, but if you look for them, they will come back to you 100-fold, because that is the law. That is the law of giving and receiving. That's the law of love. So I'm asking you to give because it feels good. Just give because it feels good, and think about donating. So what I'd like to do now is affirm our vision, our mission, and our core values together. Our mission is to inspire minds, awaken hearts, and empower lives through the teachings of Jesus Christ and other expressions of universal truth. Our vision is a world powerfully transformed through the growing movement of a shared spiritual awakening. Our mission is to inspire minds, awaken hearts, and empower lives through the teachings of Jesus Christ and other expressions of universal truth. In all that we are and all that we live, we value unconditional love, connection, authenticity, inclusivity, trust, and compassion. We are living relevant spirituality now. So I want you to take that in as you go through your week, that any time that you infuse love, you are living relevant spirituality now. And also, because you know who you are, that you are the expression of God, and you know that when we stand together in the foundation of love, when we stand on that ground and we stand together, we can all see the big picture. And the big picture is that there is a God that is always there, that is always loving, that is all powerful, all knowing. And that God, really take this in, that God lives in you. That God is always around you. And that God is a part of you. And so we stand, we can all see the big picture, that when we infuse love, we can transform the world through a shared spiritual awakening. Amen and yes.